Thank you, Savannah. That's a tough act to follow. Good morning, everyone. How many of you were at the meditation session this morning? That was amazing. Thank you, Shannon. That's one of the perks of working at Hivebrite, by the way. We get to do all these cool things. We have all these talented people. We learn so much on the job and off the job. So thank you, Shannon. Give it up for Shannon one more time. Big applause. Good morning. Bonjour. Namaste. How many of you know the word namaste? That's good. Thank you all for having me here today. I know it's been a long day of sessions for you yesterday, all that networking. I think there was a karaoke session too last night, I believe. So I'm sure you're tired. You're ready to get out of here. You're checking your phones. You're checking into flights. You're exchanging business cards. Do you know what business cards are? I don't have one anymore, but I saw one yesterday from one of our customers. So yeah, I know you're running on overtime, so I'll keep this light. And I promise it's going to be more conversational. We'll have more conversations at the back as long as you promise to visit our booth and look at our demo. This might disappoint you, but that won't. I work for Hivebrite, by the way. And our mission is to really power communities and help communities and you maximize your impact. And I'll say this, I'm not a community manager. So I'm an outsider, right? And I think Derek said this yesterday morning, too. He's on the outside, but we are so close to you, and sometimes we can see things that you don't see because we are 2 steps removed from what you do on a day-to-day basis. So what I hope to achieve today in this talk is really just say some things that have helped me to navigate my career, being a woman of color, and I'm hoping that you take away just one thing, like latch on to one thing from this talk. It could be a number that I throw at you. It could be just a keyword. It could be just a gesture. I don't care. But take away just one thing. That's all I ask of you. Okay, and then come up to my booth at the end of the day and tell me what was that one thing that you took away. I want to make a connection with you, and I hope I make that through that one thing that you take away from this talk. So yeah, it's a heavy topic, navigating. She said feminization. I call it as feminization. So I don't know how you guys say it, but you know what it means. Navigating feminization and amplifying value. That's a lot of words, big words. And I'd like to start by celebrating actually some of the great women of 2023. Greta, Beyonce, Swift. They've all been dominating our cultural conversations this year. But you know what? Wait, I'm a CRO, so I'm going to bring this down to brass tacks numbers. How many of you know how much money Barbie grossed in the first weekend that it came out in the theaters? Take a guess. Anyone? $337 million. Did you know that was the highest grossing film in Warner Brothers' 100-year history? Written by a woman and directed by a woman. How cool is that? Guess how much money these 3 women together put into our economy in 2023? $5 billion, north of $5 billion. 3 women, that's it. And mainly over the summer, right? That's insane. That screams value to me. And while the successes of these icons are so visible to us as consumers, there's actually a new record that's being set in the business world. And that makes me super proud. As of 2023, 10% of Fortune 500 companies are run by women CEOs. That's 54 companies. And women are really everywhere. They're increasing their presence. We are showing results. We are creating value. So with that, let's get closer to our industry. I think the last 2 CMX reports have surveyed all of you, and we're finding out that 65% of community managers are women. I'm not surprised, actually. that we are a female-dominated profession. I'll share my views on that in a second, but first let me be clear that success is not universally determined by gender, but rather by individual skills, experiences, and qualities. In community management in particular, actually there's a trusted source. I'm not going to name that source here because I'm sure it's going to ruffle some feathers, but they say that you need 50 different skills to become a community manager. How many of you know of that source I'm talking about? I'll give you a little hint. There's another event running this week on the East Coast hosted by that organization. You don't know? Come back to me at the back and I'll share. And if you want to know what those 50 skills are, I can share that too. But they're categorized into 4 categories. It's strategic skills, engagement skills, content skills, and technical skills. I've been at Hivebrite for over 4.5 years now. And I've met many of you successful community managers. And of course, majority of them are women. And I see all these hard skills at work, right? But I have to say that there is something special about you that makes you do what you do. And it's what I call as those traits or those soft skills that really are your superpowers. And the first one that I see, all the time is that what I call as social intelligence or interpersonal relationship building skills. The next thing that everybody talks about, the minute you say community managers, the next word that comes out of their mouth is empathy. You guys just ooze of empathy, right? And then the third thing, which I find that is incredibly amazing, and that appeals to me a lot because I'm that way too, is you're nimble, you're agile. Like you know how to kind of pivot from one idea to another. You know to figure it out in a very sort of iterative way. And that, to me, is amazing. I think that's the one quality you guys should take and really exemplify in whatever you do. It doesn't matter whether you're a community manager or whatever else. It helps me in my revenue management job as well. And by the way, these are the 3 traits that really make it enjoyable for us to work with you, right? You are that user persona that gives us joy in our job. So thank you for that. And it's pretty incredible what you do. And you could argue that these soft skills are really qualities that are more innate, more inherent in women. And that's why this job is so female-dominated. That's one way to think about it. And there might be some truth to it. There's all these social sciences and studies that prove that tell you what makes certain occupations more dominated by female, workers versus male. But I have a slightly different take on this. And that is from my vantage point, right? Because I've navigated a career. I've gone through many different roles. I've moved over from what I call as the bright side to the dark side, that is technical to commercial, right? And I'll say that, the thing that fascinates me the most is that, hold on one second, guys, I just lost my speaker notes. That's what happens, right? When you write a lot. So I'm going to switch to my phone. And she was telling me at the back, why do you need your phone? And I said, I know what happens to devices. You always lose connectivity right at that moment when you're trying to drop the biggest message of your talk. So, I'm building the suspense. Maybe we should get the music playing again. But yeah, it's actually, I think the thing and that allows me to walk now. How cool is that? So yeah, when I look at it from the outside, there's something about us women, right, that make us dominate a certain type of job at a certain point in time. And I'm going to say that is our ability to deal with fuzziness. Right? When I say fuzzy, I'm not talking about warm and fuzzy stuff, okay? We'll get to that in a minute. But I'll take my own example. I started my career as a C++ developer. I was fresh off the boat. I landed in Memphis, Tennessee, eating Corky's pork ribs, and I got a degree in applied mathematics. And I used to write algorithms for demand forecasting. And I did a little side thing as part of my daily job, which was I used to also design screen layouts. And that was a job that needed to get done because we were building software on Windows 3.0. How many of you have worked in Windows 3.0? This whole conversation is dating me, by the way. I recognize that. I don't care. I'm 54 years old, and that's what I do. So anyway, I became the de facto designer on the team. It wasn't a well-defined task. It just had to be something that had to get done. And so after a point, it got really repetitive and tedious, right? So I figured out there were tools like Visio. I built a HTML page that had UI guidelines. But you know what? Most of the programmers were so blind to aesthetics that they would almost always use the wrong color or the wrong font or something else. So I went and built a UI library. I did all of these things, and it probably resonates with you because you are doing a lot of that as community managers today when you think about it. And so I didn't know that this job would eventually morph into a big job function of its own. I think actually Steve Jobs mainstreamed it, right? Before that, UI design was one of those things. Now, fast forward 20 years, UI UX is like a big thing. There's design-led thinking. It's really still dominated by women. 55% of this occupation is done by women, but it is something. Companies are built around design. Design-led thinking is a big deal. So, I have many examples like that, but I'll take one more. So, after a few years in engineering, being a team leader and doing all that stuff, I somehow found myself being pulled into sales calls, right? There was a word we used to use then called techno-functional person. So I could talk technical and I could talk functional stuff. And soon that became my full-time job. My manager even coined a little term or a title for me. He used to call me a solutions engineer. So I would not even know what that means. People would say, are you a solutions person or are you an engineer? And I remember my mom asking me, she would say, so does this mean you're really, and I would tell her, I'm supporting salespeople to help them win deals. And she would say, does it mean you're demoted? Are you a support person now? That's what she would say. And so I didn't know at that time that solutions engineering is going to become one of those things, which is, a specialization of its own. I didn't know that pre-sales consultants, I didn't know that even something called enablement would happen in like a decade from then, but it did. And I'll tell you that, working as a solutions engineer was like a springboard for me. It then helped me navigate myself into product management, product marketing, business strategy, and ultimately to the role that I do today at Hivebrite, where I oversee marketing, oversee sales, I oversee our go-to-market strategy, I oversee our sales enablement and our sales operations function. Well, we're not a 1,000-person company, we are tiny, but all these jobs have to get done. And that was my path to where I am today. So I think what I'm trying to say is that, hopefully you get my point about fuzziness. I'm referring to jobs that come with ambiguity. They're nebulous, right? Especially in the initial stages of the life cycle of those types of jobs. And I've seen a pattern where women, take the leap of faith, they jump into these jobs, they don't wait for organizational clarity, and then when we do that, we take ownership and we approach them holistically and we get the job done. So community management to me, coming back to the topic of community management and feminization, it is one of those things. It is in that ambiguous phase. While we are seeing it mature slowly, we are seeing specialized titles, right? We are seeing community strategists, community operations people. There's even, I think there's a vendor out there who says they build the community operating system. They're just trying to geekify stuff, I think. Sorry, guys, if you're in the audience. Well, you can go visit them, but stop by the Hivebrite booth first. They're right next to us. Anyway, so I think these are all jobs that are coming up, but at the end of the day, you're still what we like to call at Hivebrite Swiss knives, right? You're doing a lot of different jobs, you roll up your sleeves, you do everything that it takes to get it done. But then, we used the word positive or toxic positivity yesterday. Let's not pretend everything is rosy, right? This job also comes with its fair set of challenges. We see that on a day-to-day basis. But I'll also go back to my experience. When I was the UI designer on the team, I would literally be told, can you go put lipstick on the pig? Right? I would be told as a solutions person, can you go set up an appointment with these prospects? And believe me, that would make my blood boil, and I would figure out a way to work through it, but I used to do it too at that point in time. And these challenges are maybe more pronounced when a job is dominated by women, but they exist all around when you are a female worker in the workforce. And so how do we as women then navigate the work environment? In these types of fuzzy jobs, it makes it even more difficult. How do we ensure that we work on our terms and not someone else's? How do we find the shortest path to rise up to those leadership positions that we so deserve? And how do we help community teams get a stronger identity in organizations? I'll tell you a little story. I was at dinner last night with some of our awesome customers. And I was sitting right next to a young and really smart, creative community manager. And she was telling me about their internal initiative around communities. And what I realized is for the last year, this community that she's been building was pretty much being built in what I would call as stealth mode. This is a massive organization. It's a Fortune 500 business. And she brought it to where it is today in stealth mode, to the point where the mothership, as the fond leader of that group likes to call it, actually recognizes the value of that now, and they have gone ahead and established a center of excellence for communities to bring this community and other communities within that organization under an umbrella and build a common community architecture. How cool is that? So, I mean, that's where your profession is, and that's what you have to navigate. How do you get through that stealth phase? How do you prove the value? How do you prove that the concept even makes sense? There's a lot for you to do, right? So with that, I think I'll talk to you about what has helped me, what have been my enablers through my journey, and maybe there is something over here that might help you. So remember, I said to you at the beginning, latch on to something from this talk, and probably it'll help you as you navigate all the uncertainty, particularly this year, where I saw the community management report say that this particular profession is shrinking or contracting, and it is really sort of inventing itself. And I truly believe it. I was talking to another customer, in fact, this morning, and she was telling me that the community manager job and the event manager's job has now been merged. You can look at it as, well, that's 2 times the amount of work you have to do. But the other way to look at it is maybe that job is becoming more mainstream, right? And that's why it's getting integrated into some bigger functions, which could be a positive sign. So let's see where it goes. But in the meanwhile, let's navigate this fuzziness, this ambiguity that we are seeing around us. So the 3 enablers, like I said, that have helped me are actually pretty simple. But I'll try to give you some more context on how it's truly helped me, and then maybe it's something that you can take and apply to your day-to-day jobs. The first is confidence, and everybody talks about that, and I think it's worth reiterating that you have to own your confidence. I don't know how you get there. Everybody has a different journey, but you've got to figure it out. If you can't create that self-confidence in yourself, you pretty much give up. Right? So that is the most important thing. The second thing is leveraging customer impact. It sounds pretty lame here, but we'll talk about it a little bit more. And the last one is my favorite thing, which is driving cross-functional leadership. Because I like the challenge of being a leader, but I like the bigger challenge of being a cross-functional leader. And there are ways to really navigate that, and I think that's particularly important for community managers. So let's start with the confidence piece. Right, as women, and in my case, particularly as a woman of color, I was extremely soft-spoken, by the way. You won't believe that now, but I used to be like that until even 5 years ago. And I could not even raise my voice when I felt like something being said didn't make sense. So we are often faced with situations where people around us really don't even know what to expect from us. Right? If we don't demonstrate confidence, they don't know what's going through your head. And when you bring out your own inner confidence, I think it quite literally makes everybody around you comfortable and it makes you comfortable literally in your own skin, right? And it took me a while to realize that being confident actually helps put others around you at instant ease. And that's something that you should internalize. When you go into a room and you're looking timid, people are trying to make you comfortable, they are uncomfortable, but the minute they see your confidence, the minute you speak up, doesn't have to be loud. You don't have to stomp your feet, but you got to be able to show that confidence in your own authentic way, and that will put the person across the table from you at instant ease. We know that community building is very hard. It's an art, it's a science, it's everything in between, and it's not easy, right? It's a long game. And I would say that we talked about those 3 soft skills. We talked about empathy, we talked about interpersonal relationships, we talked about nimbleness. Put those to good use. And you can then start to influence people, without exerting authority. You can actually use your empathy to create win-win situations internally. You do that so easily on the outside. Why can't you do it internally? Right? And use that agility to adapt your strategy. You're going to fail. Failure is part of the game here. How do you pick up from there? And then how do you move on? Use that nimbleness. Figure out solutions. I think Rachel actually was sitting up here, said to me last night, she says, I'm a problem solver. She's a community manager. Right, Rachel? So I think that's what community building is all about. Take it as it comes. And remember, your self-confidence is what will bring trust and inspiration. We heard that word inspiration this morning several times during the meditation session. That's what creates trust and inspiration in others. Let's move on to the second one, which is leveraging customer impact. How many of you have heard the word or the term KYC? It comes from the banking world. Know your customer, right? And that is my superpower. If I have one thing that I think I do well, that is, I know how to put myself in the shoes of my customer. We have the world's biggest private educational institution in this room today as our customer, and I think they will attest to it. Even yesterday, we were talking about business processes that we need to simplify for them in their business, and I know how to talk that talk. I can put myself in the shoes of my customer. I actually literally spend 1/3 of my time working with customers. It strengthens my influence it helps me build relationships, make those authentic connections, but it also helps me strengthen my influence with my board, with my executive leadership, with our engineers. They're like 5 steps removed from what we're doing on the field. It also helps me drive a lot of high-level business decisions. It's like fine-tuning or product market fit. It could be creating sales methodologies. It could be assessing competency gaps. It could be influencing our product roadmap. All of that comes not because I'm a genius, but because I'm talking to my customers for 1/3 of my time, and then the remaining 1/3 or 2/3 of my time and trying to figure out how do I take that data and operationalize that within my business. So keep in mind that, you know your customer, but that's not good enough, and that goes to the remaining 2/3, right? That data has no meaning or no depth until you can contextualize it and connect the dots, use that knowledge, bring it back to your own business, and like we heard in the keynote talk last morning from Leah, figure out how you address gaps that your leadership team understands by using that knowledge. Right? Let's bring it back to the community management world. Across all community use cases. So now we serve like 4 different verticals. We serve hundreds of use cases. We serve communities of customers, communities of nonprofit supporters. We do communities of educators. We do associations. We see a lot of different communities. But if there's one thing that every community starts to measure on the onset, it's acquisition and engagement, correct? And many people call these as vanity metrics. They say they don't have any meaning. What happens with those metrics? But we know, I'll use a speak from sales pipeline management. We call something as leading indicators. Any given point in time, I'm looking to have 3.5 times the amount of pipeline that we need for us to hit our goals, right? So it's similar. I think engagement, acquisition are leading indicators of success. But then what you have to do as community managers is take those leading indicators and then map it to something that your organization understands. It could be a funnel. Think of setting up a funnel. You probably hear your marketing folks talking about top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, the bottom of the funnel, conversion at every step in the funnel. Take your data and start reporting it out using a funnel methodology or whatever else. It could be a flywheel methodology, but something that enables you to bring it back to terms and terminology that your business understands. But that's only about how you report on engagement data, right? What do you then do beyond that? What you can really do, at least this is what we do with our own community, and I'll talk about that a little bit in the end, is you can actually change the conversation from community being a nice to have to a must have by taking that data and then converting it into business metrics that are potentially lagging indicators of those leading indicators. So think about leads generated from contacts coming out of the community. Think about revenue generated from events that you might be running on the community which augment the regular events that you run as a business. Think about potentially recruitment candidates and the pipeline you're building of potential employees, and go back to your HR team and understand how that's trickling through the recruitment funnel. If you are genuinely curious and you go and find out what's happening with the data, then I think you can have a greater impact. Now you're having a conversation where you're leveraging customer data and connecting the dots and bringing it back to your business. You guys have one more thing that I think is phenomenal, which is stories, right? You talk about numbers, and those numbers can get dry, and you can make numbers tell whatever story you want, but you can also bring stories from within your communities back to your organization, right? So I'll give you an example. I was in DC a couple months ago visiting a customer, a nonprofit customer of ours, and that organization was asked, they just launched their community like 2 months before I met them. And they had it was crazy, over like 70% activation or something like that. And they were asked to submit speaker applications to the World Economic Forum. And thanks to the community manager went and posted a job on the job board, pushed that into the live feed. There were 28 applications within 48 hours of highly qualified candidates. They sent those applications. They secured a spot on the center stage. They went and made a phenomenal impression. And then that led to a larger outcome. They actually got a huge grant from a large foundation. Now, that was just one story. I heard that. She came and told me that story, and then she told me 5 other things. That was a woman community manager, of course. But it was that one micro moment where she went and posted that job, got applications, got that win, and really changed the trajectory of that organization. Now that's impact. And the next thing I asked her was, I said, did you record that somewhere? Are you presenting it to your internal management? And she said, oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I should start creating a log of all these little wins. I think that's something maybe you should take away. And since then, I've had that conversation with many, many community managers. You are so externally focused that you're not remembering to bring those stories, those little wins, those little micro moments, and bring it back and record it, and then create that one macro moment for you in front of your leadership team. That's what I'd urge you to do. Think about how you do it, again, in your own way. Make sure your leadership is giving you the time of the day. There's a lot of different obstacles. I know you have to overcome those. But once you do it once, I can guarantee you, you're going to get that recurring slot on the calendar every single time. So let's wrap it up. I think leveraging customer data and stories is important, but then contextualizing it, connecting the dots, and bringing that back to your stakeholders in the language that they speak is just as important. And that's what you need to figure out how you keep doing within your business. And I'll talk about my last, in the very last and my most favorite enabler at this point, which is cross-functional leadership. The operative word is leadership, of course, but I also think it is more about actualizing that leadership in the form of execution. And I'll tell you, in my experience, this leadership only sticks. There are moments of leadership where you feel like, oh, you can be such an inspirational leader. But if you want to be a leader on the sustained basis, you got to figure out how you operationalize it. How do you bring that and stitch it into the fabric of your business? I use a framework, even since I've left product and come over to the commercial side. I use the Agile framework. I love it. The 12 principles, the Agile manifesto is fantastic. It helps you actually take that principle of nimbleness and bring it and operationalize it across your business, and also bring along stakeholders, have them take accountability. You can also make them then do the work that comes natural to them, but supporting the initiative that you're trying to drive, right? So, and I know all this is a lot of words, but I'll try and use the example of our community to tell you how we do it. So Hivebrite has a community of Hivebrite admins. And this is, by the way, run by Morgan Wood, who was supposed to be on stage with me here today, but she couldn't make it. She's amazing. She's our product owner for our community. And by the way, that's the lifeblood of any Agile team. Morgan is our product owner. And she uses Asana internally to run and track the community. We have a roadmap. We groom it like we groom our product. We have a backlog. We have user stories. We build sprint plans. We assign work to stakeholders in marketing, in product, in customer success. We measure, we report, we do retrospectives. That's how we run our community. So, when we assign this work to other departments, we assign it in a way where it fits naturally into what they do. Right? There's product teams involved, and I'll tell you what we've been doing over there in a second, but it aligns with their OKRs. So there's really no friction in how we operate our community. And so I'll give you examples of some of the outcomes that we've driven from there. For example, the community is beautiful, right? So we have a lot of branding features, and Morgan's really utilized it to make the community shine. One of our customers recently said to a CSM, "My client is so inspired by the Hivebrite community that he straight up stole our custom page designs to create his own." If we can be an inspiration from our community, then there's nothing better than that. And we use the term, we drink our own champagne, right? That's what we do. We use our community. We try to impress our customers with our community and let them have inspiration from what we do there. Another example is a module that we launched recently called Journeys. It's a learning pathway module. Several customers looked at this. They looked at it turned on in the Hivebrite community, and they asked us to activate this module for them on their platform. Some customers even pay for it. That's an example of a business outcome. We have Jasmine in the crowd here. Where's Jasmine? She's our customer success leader. She handles a portfolio of 200 customers. You know what she said to me yesterday? She said she relies on the Hivebrite community as her primary customer enablement tool for all things related to product education. That's a business outcome, right? So where I was going with that is try to figure out how you take these cross-functional processes, operationalize it, but also give something back to your organization that literally transforms your business. And I'll tell you, in a matter of 6 months, our community has become a must-have for our business. And if you can drive that rigor in that execution in a consistent way, and you can make it valuable for everyone, there's nothing like it. We even run product labs. We do all kinds of things. So now we are at a point where we are like, there's so much we can do with it. We've got to figure out how we focus and get 1 or 2 or 3 things to the next level. So those are my 3 enablers. Use your confidence to drive transformative change, contextualize your customer data, and drive business outcomes, empower yourself with that, and actualize your cross-functional leadership using execution as a way to make it more and more sustained and more, embedded within your organization. Thank you all. I hope you've got one little thing to latch onto.